I never knew my father. But then again, my father's father never knew my father either. On the planet I'm from, everyone and anyone can shift their form into anything they please at any time. Needless to say, there are a lot of ghost dads. We can hue shift as well, you see, but nobody would pay us any mind if we went around calling ourselves hue shifters. What about species who are colorblind? Wouldn't be very considerate to introduce oneself as a hue shifter, so the term shapeshifter is what stuck. But I digress. What I want to talk about today is my job. And no, I'm not a stripper. You see, it's my job to make first contact with the more morphologically challenged species of our little galactic cluster. What you might not see is that it isn't as simple as taking on the form of our quarry and waltzing right in to shake hands. The awful truth is that shapeshifters, like me, have one unfortunate drawback to infiltration. We stink like pee. And not just a little either. Oh no. Rancid, overpowering ammonia. Being oily blobs without olfactory organs in our primal form, we hadn't the faintest idea why our top operatives were being mopped up and flushed away with such alarming frequency. In fact, our lack of discernment when it came to all things fragrant caused quite the conundrum for us. And when we finally did catch on to why so many species had holes in their craniums that they never seemed to put food in, we were wholeheartedly dismayed. The realization that our entire gimmick as a species could be so easily sniffed out by a single whiff was, to put it lightly, depressing. And we immediately evacuated all of our piddle-scented operatives and withheld all further missions. Now, an optimist would always say that the glass is half full, but when you're an oily, boneless shapeshifter who's also a piss-reeking pessimist, the metaphorical glass of possibility begins to lose any and all real semblance of traction. Our council resigned our contact missions to thenceforth be simple radio messages announcing our presence and intentions for peaceful cooperation, ultimately interrupting our stream of covert information sampling indefinitely. It was the cruelest of ironies that although we could shift our forms and our hues, we could never be known as smell shifters. However, some of us were undeterred. Some of us sat in on the council meetings with our figurative fingers crossed, and even more sat in on the meetings disguised as the very chairs the real counselors sat in, holding our own covert council under the table. I mean, we're shapeshifters without olfactory glands. We can still pull this kind of shit on each other pretty much all the time. In fact, I'll bet somebody from housekeeping probably even sat in A's the table when they realized they'd have to lug a real table up the stairs. The elevator was out that day, you see. But I digress. My covert council had finally found a space-faring species with a considerably blunted sense of smell, and whose livestock created such suffocating clouds of aromas already that we would be able to easily blend in as just about anything we wanted. Finally, we would be able to use our innate abilities to slither our way to an advantage. The humans would never see us coming. We picked a quiet outback with a little red hut to be our drop zone, and as we slinked inside, we found the perfect creatures to conceal ourselves as. Large quadrupedal beasts with natural camouflage patterns on their hide. We quietly beamed them aboard our vessel, who I could have sworn was just Steve until we reached warp speed. But I digress. We took the beasts' forms perfectly, and then awaited the humans to come to us, that we could study them closely. After only a few moments of waiting, one such human came through the large rickety doors with several metallic pails. I stood intently, watching as the human came near, then squatted its hind on a desiccated root structure of some kind, and placed one such pail under my belly. To my utmost confusion, the being began tugging firmly and diligently on the 4 flagellas that I'd imitated from the quadrupedal beast's form, whistling some kind of rhythm with its food hole as it did. I looked to my compatriots with a stern lack of comprehension, hopeful they might offer some clue as to what was going on, but they simply returned looks of equal confoundment. The human huffed and moved the empty pail under one of my colleagues' rotund bellies and repeated the flagellum yanking procedure. After a tepid silence, the human, who seemed equally confused as we were, took its collection of empty pails and left. We instantly reverted our forms and agreed once and for all that shape-shifting probably wasn't going to be much help going forward. I decided to take a long vacation on our homeworld after that, going far into the forest to just sit and exist as a tree for a while. A piss-smelling tree, for sure. But some things you just can't change.